All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Senate Committee on Education. I'm Senator Angie Taylor, and I have the honor of leading our meeting on this afternoon. So we'll start at the beginning with our roll call. Madam Secretary, please.
Senator Buck. Here. Senator Cruz Crawford. Here. Senator Doniate. Here. Senator Dondero Loop. Senator Rogish. Here. Senator Titus. Here. Chair Taylor.
I am present, and please mark Senator Dondero Loop absent excused, please. Okay, thank you everyone for being here, and it's been a little bit since we've met, so let me just go over the little bit of housekeeping as a reminder for most of us. Excuse me, please silent your electronic devices if you would. Should you come forward to speak, first of all, if you plan to speak, then please make sure you've signed in over at the table, and if you have a business card, please leave that with our staff. Excuse me, they'll make sure they get that information from you. When you speak, turn on the microphone, speak loudly and clearly, and state your name. And please, the first time you speak, please spell your last name for the record. And then every time subsequent to that, when you speak, please give us your name so that our minutes are accurately reflected. Let's see, we will have two bill presentations on today. The presentation time is 15 minutes each, and then, of course, we will open it up for testimony in support, opposition, and neutral. Testimony will be limited to 2 minutes per comment. Please, on whether you come forward on either of those, and once again, make sure you give us your name. If you're going to testify in person here in Las Vegas, here in Carson City or in Las Vegas, I see a few folks there, or if you're going to phone in, then again, please make sure that you state your name when you begin and spell your last name for the record. If you plan to call in, that call-in number is 888-475-4499. The meeting ID for this meeting is 8791-5657-485, and then press the the pound button. You'll have an opportunity to give testimony on either of the two bills that we're going to hear on today, and as well as public comment at the very end of our meeting. And then finally, you'll see that the committee members have our laptops in front of us. Please do not take that as a sign of inattention or disrespect. We have exhibits and so on in front of us, and we'll often refer to them as we go. And I think that is all of the housekeeping that we have here. So let's go. We have two Assembly bill hearings. We're on the Assembly side now. Two bills we're going to hear on today. First is Assembly Bill 30, revises provisions governing charter schools. Did I say 30? Oh, did I say 30? Oh, 39, sorry. How about Assembly Bill 39? There we are.
I got scared.
There we are. No, you have come to the right place. You have come to the right place. So please, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you for being here. State your name and spell it for the record, and you know the routine from there.
Okay, Melissa Macadon, Melissa Mackedon. Good afternoon, Chair Taylor and members of the Senate Committee on Education. As I just said, my name is Melissa Macadon, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Nevada State Public Charter School Authority. With me today in Las Vegas is our General Counsel, Samantha King Powell. We are the only statewide charter school authorizer in Nevada, and we currently authorize 44 charter holders operating on 80 charter school campuses located in Churchill County, Clark County, Elko County, Washoe County, and White Pine County. I am here today to present Assembly Bill 39, which was pre-filed on behalf of the State Public Charter School Authority and revises various provisions governing charter schools. This bill has three main goals. First, it clarifies membership and age requirements for voting members of the SPCSA board. Second, it requires each charter school sponsor to serve as the local education agency for any charter school it authorizes. And finally, it removes redundancies in the charter school renewal process. The SPCSA believes these changes will ensure that Nevada's charter school landscape is best positioned to be as effective and as efficient as possible. I will now walk the committee through each section of the bill. Section 1 clarifies membership and age requirements for voting members of the SPCSA board. For context, the SPCSA board added a student representative in the fall of 2024. We believe student voice is crucial to the discussions of the SPCSA board. However, the SPCSA board also makes several high-stakes decisions, including the potential closure of schools. With those high-stakes decisions in mind, we are proposing updates to NRS 388A.153.3 to indicate that voting members of the board must be at least 21 years old. These changes are reflected on line 40 and 41 on page 3 of the bill. And conforming changes are made on lines 4 and 18 on page 3, lines 37, 39, and 44 on page 4, in section 2, lines 11, 13, and 15 on page 5, and in section 3, lines 22 and 23. Continuing to the next part of section 1, subsection 4 on the top of page 4, it adds some additional criteria regarding members of the SPCSA board. The proposed additional language creates extra protection against a potential conflict of interest by ensuring that no member of the SPCSA has a financial interest in any charter school in Nevada, even if the SPCSA is not the sponsor of that school. For example, if an individual was the CMO of an educational management organization that contracted with the city of Henderson and one of their charter schools, this provision would still not allow that individual to serve on our board. So regardless of the sponsor, they can't serve on our board if they work for an EMO. Moving on to subsection 5 on page 4, there are some changes regarding charter school teachers and leaders eligible to sit on the SPCSA board. As currently written, the statute allows no more than two charter school employees to serve on the board at the same time. These are essential voices because they understand how charter schools operate and function on a day-to-day basis. Currently, if the school a teacher or administrator is working at has ever at any time received a 1, 2, or 3-star rating, that teacher or administrator is not eligible to serve on the SPCSA board. However, a charter school leader who has taken a school from a 1-star rating to a 4 or 5-star rating is precisely the type of school leader whose expertise would benefit the SPCSA board. To expand the pool of eligible teachers and administrators and provide these highly qualified individuals an opportunity to serve, we are proposing to update the statute to require that to be eligible to serve on the SPCSA board, the school a teacher or an administrator currently works for must be in good standing on the SPCSA performance framework. This means the school must currently be rated 3 stars or above, have no financial notice of concern or breach, and have no organizational notice of concern or breach. If a school was rated 1 or 2 star or had any financial or organizational concerns, the individual would not be eligible. Next, we jump down to section 4, which begins on line 27 on page 5. I'd like to provide some context before we get into the specifics. Throughout the country, including in Nevada, school districts are designated as local education agencies, commonly called LEAs. LEAs are responsible for ensuring that their schools provide free, appropriate public education, which includes compliance with Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, ensuring equal access to education free from discrimination, ensuring compliance with the Civil Rights Act of 1964, ensuring compliance with Title IX, ensuring provisions of basic educational resources, including materials, teachers, and facilities, and ensuring support for at-risk students. Additionally, LEAs must ensure special education and related services are being provided in accordance with IDEA. Lastly, LEAs allocate federal and state grant funds proportionally to their schools. Being an LEA is a tremendous responsibility. In most states, charter schools are their own LEAs. Nevada is one of 3 states where the authorizer serves as the LEA. Clark County School District, Washoe County School District, Carson City School District, and the SPCSA all serve as the LEA for the schools each entity authorizes. and this structure makes sense. The authorizer is the entity that has oversight over these schools, can sanction the schools, and if necessary, terminate their charter. However, when cities and counties were granted the authority to become a charter school authorizer during the 2023 legislative session, NRS 388A.159 was revised in a way that specifies the SPCSA would serve as the LEA for the schools that any municipality authorizes. For all the reasons I have discussed, this setup will not work effectively. This was an oversight that needs to be addressed, and Section 4 of this bill clarifies the language to ensure that each charter school sponsor will continue to serve as the LEA for the schools it sponsors. Finally, Section 5 of this bill speaks to the renewal process. This is for schools who have been approved and are at the end of their current charter contract. They must apply to be renewed by the authorizing board. If the renewal is approved, they are given a new charter contract. Currently, NRS 388A.285 subsection 1 requires the charter school sponsor to provide schools with their performance data on or before June 30th before the final year of their charter contract. As the statute currently reads on page 7, line 8, the schools must turn around and return the data to their sponsor in the renewal application. By striking the language "in addition to" and changing it to "other than," schools will no longer have to just resubmit the performance data that the sponsor already gave them. Instead, they can submit other narrative and data they believe supports their renewal. The sponsor will continue to have access to the school's performance data and that will remain the primary factor in the renewal process, as specified in subsection 4 of NRS 388A.245. Ultimately, the SPCSA believes these changes will fine-tune the charter landscape in Nevada. With that, I am available for any questions the committee may have.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McAdin. I will turn to the committee. Of course, we have Senator Titus. Had to give you that hard time. But any questions for Ms. McAdin, and then we'll continue from there. Go ahead, Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here. Fortunate that you're now on this side of the House, and so welcome. Just some clarification. To me, the main point of this bill is, number one, who can vote, the voting members, and age requirements. So that's one requirement. That not two members more than can be teachers. But then the other appointments, it's unclear to me what their requirements are to serve on the board.
Sure. Melissa Mackin for the record. Actually, I didn't really get into that too much because we aren't necessarily proposing much of a change. But if you look on page 3 of the bill, starting on line 20, it tells you that all the requirements that you have if you want to serve on the board. Obviously, those aren't applicable to the student, but it includes people if you serve on our board, it has to be people who have a demonstrated understanding of charter schools. We have to have a parent or legal guardian of a pupil enrolled in a charter school. It includes persons with specific knowledge of, elementary and secondary education, school finance or accounting, management practices, assessments, school assessments, educational technology, law, and insofar as practicable, reflects the ethnic and geographical diversity of the state, and if practicable, people who understand authorizing.
If follow up on that, if I might. So just out of curiosity, with a 9-member board and you have different people appointing them, the governor, the majority leader, and in both houses, the Senate and the Assembly, do they then, once one of these folks in this category, once they're appointed, then they have to pick somebody else in a different one of those other categories? How do you mix it up? If it seems to me that you have a very diverse representation on the board, but I'm curious if it doesn't you have 5 fiscal people or whatever.
Melissa Macadam for the record. So far, so good. I mean, there have been a few instances where it was like we need a parent. Like, you're going to have to find somebody who's a parent, or we need somebody from Northern Nevada. Governor, could we get a nominee from Northern Nevada?
So in your position, sorry to interrupt here, but in your position, then you help direct and guide and make sure that it really does meet what this bill is intending to do, or has intended, a diverse of all the inclusion of everybody that you have wanted to.
Melissa Mackin, for the record, we don't choose people, but we will, if we're missing certain qualifications, we'll point them in that direction.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question.
Thank you, Senator Titus. You're good. Just a couple of questions for me, Ms. McAdoo. And again, thank you for the presentation. I learned more and more about charter schools the more I get into the legislation or the policy around it. Talk to us a little bit just about, there are three particular areas that you pointed out that this bill focuses on. One, would you mind repeating those, because I missed one of them?
First, it clarifies membership and age requirements for voting members.
Got that.
Second, it requires each charter school sponsor to serve as for the LEA for the schools it authorizes. And third, it removes redundancies in the charter school renewal process.
Okay. Thank you. My question on then, as you look at the things that you're asking, how do you find this align with other state charter school associations across the country in terms of your sister organizations, those that we may model?
Melissa Mackin, for the record. Well, as I said, in most states, charter schools are their own LEA. So there's a couple other states that we definitely collaborate with to kind of, how are you doing this? How does that work? We've got most of those kinks worked out. Certainly, when we were new, it was, how are we going to distribute federal grants? What's the right way to do that? Are we doing it legally and properly, right? But for the most part, we have that pretty much worked out. Now, as far as like our board and how they're appointed, I really can't speak to how that works in other states that do have statewide authorizers. There are other states that have statewide authorizers like us, but I don't know the specifics on how their boards are created.
Thank you for that, because that was going to be my follow-up about their boards. Any other questions from the committee for Ms. Magadan? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much, and then we will open it up for testimony. Any testimony in support or opposition or neutral to Assembly Bill 39. If you'd like to testify in support, please come forward at this time here in Carson City or in Las Vegas. And thank you, Ms. Powell. No questions for you, but thank you for being there. We appreciate it. Please go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Wesley Harper. I am the Director of Government Affairs for the City of North Las Vegas. We are in support of this legislation. I want to give a little context, though, for our support. So I want to make it clear that we are in support. When we were given the ability to authorize charter schools after the last session, we did it relying on the state continuing to be the LEA. We understand the reasons why the state is giving that responsibility to the authorizers, and we are not opposing or contesting that in any way. It does present recalculation for us, though, but we see this as an opportunity and a challenge, and we're ready to walk forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Anyone else here in Carson City in support? Seeing none, we will go to Las Vegas. Please go right ahead. State your name for the record.
Hello, Chair, members of the Senate Education Committee. My name is Gil Lopez, GIL-LOPEZ, here with the Charter School Association of Nevada, here in full support of AB 39. We do want to applaud your presentation and do commend the Charter Authority for all the work that they do to support our charter schools and allowing them to flourish, and also provide the results of high academic achievement for our schools. I do also mention I am involved with a lot of the conversations at a national level when it comes to charter schools. And our statewide authorizer is one of the models that a lot of other states look to as far as how they do their work and how they support our charter schools. So it's definitely something that we can commend the work that they're doing here to support our students here in Nevada. Once again, here in full support of AB 39. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Seeing no one else here in Carson City or Las Vegas, AVH will check the phone line for any testimony in support.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support to Assembly Bill 39, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller, please press *6 to unmute. You're unmuted. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Taylor and members of the Senate Education Committee. This is Anthony Curry. I am the Director of Advocacy and Public Policy for Opportunity 180, a nonprofit organization working towards a North Star of every kid graduating high school, college, and career ready, prepared to live the life they dream. In support of our work advocating for high quality public education for every student in Nevada, we advocate for good governance practices, including those that align with existing best practices and processes. In 2023, we were supportive of municipalities becoming authorizers of charter schools, and we look forward to additional high-quality public schools serving students and families as a result of that legislation. To ensure continuity with authorizer and existing processes, we support Section 4 of this bill, which requires sponsors of charter schools to stand as the local education agency, or LEA, for that school. LEAs are responsible for the compliance of their schools, including those related to academic, operational, and financial performance. This bill would help to ensure continuity as the school is authorized and as it opens, as authorizers can consider compliance when they approve a school. This change would align charter schools with district schools and the state public charter school authority, and that the LEA for each school would be the entity responsible for the school's compliance. For these reasons, we support Assembly Bill 39 and appreciate the committee's consideration of AB 39. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. Next caller. Excuse me.
Chair, there are no additional callers at this time.
Thank you so much. We'll now open it up for testimony in opposition. Anyone in opposition here to Assembly Bill 39 here in Carson City or in Las Vegas? Seeing none, we will go to the phone lines. AVH, do we have a caller?
Chair, we've had no additional callers at this time.
Thank you so much. Now, neutral testimony. Anyone testifying neutral on Assembly Bill 39 here in Carson or in Las Vegas? Seeing none, we will go to the phone lines. Did the caller jump on, AVH?
Chair, there are no additional callers at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. Ms. McAdam, would you, closing remarks or closing comments?
Melissa McAdam for the record. Just thank you for the opportunity to hear the bill and look forward to answering any questions should they arise for you individually. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. God bless you. Okay, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 39 and thank all who participated. Now we will go on to our next hearing, Assembly Bill 236. Assembly Bill 236. I see Assembly Member De Silva coming forward, as well as Mr. Stewart. Okay. We can begin when you're ready. Oh, yep, we have Las Vegas as well. Please, go ahead, Assembly Member, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Taylor and committee, for allowing us to present AB 236 this afternoon. For the record, my name is Assembly Member Ruben De Silva, a representative from North Las Vegas and East Las Vegas, and a current school teacher from Clark County. Today I have with me Mr. Daniel Stewart, a CCA representative who will talk us through and detail the technical aspects of the bill. And I also have with me in Las Vegas, Marie Nisis, president of the Clark County Education Association, the largest teachers union in the state, to discuss why this bill is being brought forth. This bill seeks to allow for greater proportional representation in the appointment authority granted to Nevada teachers unions. It will specifically focus on revising provisions that govern the selection of members to certain education-related boards in the state of Nevada. The bottom line here, is that for the past 8 years, the Clark County Education Association, whose membership makes up the vast majority of all public school teachers in this state, have been completely disenfranchised from having a voice in the selection process of these boards. And I'll say that again. For the last 8 years, the Clark County Education Association, whose membership makes up the vast majority of public school teachers in this state, have been completely disenfranchised from having a voice in the selection process of these boards. Before CCA disaffiliated from NSEA in 2018, of course, there was only one state union. Now, as all of you know, there are two, but the language in the NRS is archaic. It has not evolved to reflect the current reality. The fact that there are now two teachers unions in Nevada. The primary objective of this bill is to remedy this situation which, by the way, leaves over 75% of our state's public school teachers voiceless. This bill will simply allow CCA to have input in the board appointments. So how does AB 236 address this issue? It is a very straightforward way. The bill will ask that each union present a slate of 3 candidates each, and that the governor would then choose from this combined total of 6. So CCA would present 3 nominations, NSEA would provide 3, and it would then be up to the governor to select from that totality of 6 for the various boards and commissions that we're discussing in this bill. This proposal is the most equitable solution. So some have argued that even this proposal gives NSEA an advantage. Remember, we're talking about CCA, which represents 75% of all the teachers, public school teachers in the state, and NSEA, which represents about 25%. But still, we're saying in this bill that they'll each be nominating 3 each. Okay, 3 from CCA, 3 from NSEA, 75%, 25%. Okay, but that's a question for another day. So this bill is really all about fairness in representation through the means of readjusting how we make appointments to these education-related boards. And with that, Madam Chair, I would like to turn things over to Mr. Dan Stewart to go over the technical aspects of the bill.
Yes. Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Daniel Stewart. I'm here on behalf of the Clark County Education Association, and I'm going to walk through some of the technical aspects of the bill. I thank the Assembly Member De Silva for bringing this bill. His testimony, I think he covered the general broad scope of the bill itself, and so I'll try not to be redundant on the things that he said. One of the big topics this session and every session are our many boards and commissions. These commissions are usually created and staffed based on a snapshot in time, and so when times change, the boards and commissions should change as well. But before I go into the changes, I want to emphasize what's not being changed with this bill. Nothing in this bill changes the appointing authority, the nominating authority, or the membership requirements that currently exist under law. All this bill does is ensure that when making an appointment or a nomination, the appointing or nominating authority is allowed to consider a larger, more representative pool of applicants than current law allows. Now, AB 236 only addresses 3 boards. Most of the boards that have been created since then have adjusted with time, but these are older boards. And so I'm going to go through each one of them and discuss the changes. The first is the State Board of Education. Currently, the State Board of Education has 11 members. Of those 11 members, 7 are voting members. Of those 7 voting members, 4 are elected, and their districts are essentially the congressional districts, and 3 are appointed. So 3 of the voting members are appointed. Of those 3 appointed members, 2 must come from nominations by the Speaker and the Majority Leader. 1 is appointed by the governor entirely without nomination, but all 3 are ultimately appointed by the governor. Of those 3, 1 has to be a public school teacher. Now, there's additional requirements as well, including that geographical diversity of these 3 members be respected. I believe Senator Titus had an earlier question on the bill before about how you make sure that these boards represent certain things or meet these certain requirements. There are a lot of these requirements in the law. And during my time in the executive branch, these things like geographical diversity, representation, like addresses, where you live, where you're from, what your occupation is, these things matter. They're not only in finding people to serve on boards, but also when those qualifications weren't met, we've had to remove people from the boards. So things like the geographical diversity for the State Board of Education still exists. The governor, the Senate Majority Leader, and the Speaker are going to have to consider that when they make their names. Under current law, despite the fact that the Majority Leader, the Speaker, and the Governor are the appointing and nominating authorities, they must do so based on a list that's provided by the Nevada State Education Association, currently a list of 3 names. What 236 would do, like Assembly Member De Silva said, is it would allow both NSEA and CCA to submit 3 names, and then they would get to pick from a list of 6 now, rather than a list of 3. Again, it would still be the Governor, the Majority Leader, and the Speaker that would ultimately nominate and appoint. It would just be pulling from a larger group of names. Everything else would remain the same. The second board that 236 changes is the Teachers and Leaders Council. Now this board, there are 4 public school teachers that are on this board. Right now, it's the NSA submits a list. There's no cap on the number. of folks that can be submitted as part of this list. But they do have to be teachers, and they do have to represent geographical diversity. What 236 would do would be each of these respective unions would put forth 3 names, and the governor would pick 4 out of that 6, so ensuring that at least one from both lists is picked. Because even if they picked all 3 from one group, there would still need at least one from the other. But again, the governor would be under the obligation to respect geographical diversity. Additionally, Senate Bill 236 would make a similar change to the appointment of the other licensed professional. This would be psychologists, licensed school counselors, speech language pathologists, and so forth. As of right now on that board, there's one member that serves in that role, and they're picked from a list from NSEA, and is common by now that it would be, if 236 passes, it would be a list of 3 from each. It would pick that other licensed professional. Lastly, there is and I got to read this to get this right, the Statewide Council for the Coordination of the Regional Training Programs. Right? That's another board and commission, again, one public school teacher that currently NSEA provides the only list of names. This bill would do 3 and 3. Now, that's all. That's all the bill does. Again, the rest of the requirements for representation remain the same. This simply allows our appointing authorities more diversity, more representation, and a chance for the Clark County teachers to finally have a voice on these boards, or at least to be considered on these boards. One other thing I want to clarify is, if you're looking at the bill, you notice that the name Clark County Education Association and Nevada State Education is not in there. That this fits with the modern trend of when you're creating boards and commissions to not name specific organizations. So the way that it's broken up in this bill is the largest teachers union in Clark County and the largest teachers union outside of Clark County, which is currently NSCA and CCA. But the reason to remove those names is so that if things change in the future, if they merge, if something changes, you don't have to come back and change this bill again. Essentially, this is based on the size as it exists at the time. In sum, AB 236 does make necessary equitable changes to current law, and should the bill pass, no organization and no school district or region will lose any right or privilege that they currently enjoy under law. All would still be entitled to submit their names. Clark County educators would simply have a similar right and privilege. I'll now turn it over to Marie Nices, President of the Clark County Education Association, to give some concluding remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Taylor and committee members. Marie Nices, President of CCEA. CCEA is the only educator union officially recognized by the Clark County School District. AB 236 aims to modernize and update an outdated law. Times have changed, and we want to ensure the law is as inclusive and fair as possible. It is not intended to silence or disenfranchise the voices of educators in Northern Nevada. You may often hear that NSEA represents educators across all 17 counties. ESEA is a support professional union under the NSEA umbrella, and there is a small educator group, NEA of Southern Nevada, also affiliated with NSEA. However, it's important to note that NEASN is not an officially recognized educator union by the Clark County School District. NEASN has only a handful of members and lacks the diverse membership needed to make recommendations in the way CCA can. CCA is the largest educator union in Nevada, and it's also the fastest growing educator union in the country. With a diverse and expansive membership, we represent educators from various backgrounds, grade levels, and subject areas. This allows us to recommend candidates who are not only highly qualified, but also represent the broad range of needs and perspectives that exist within our school district. I want to address a concern we've heard regarding rural educators and their representation. Some have expressed that allowing CCEA to make recommendations to the governor could diminish the voice of rural educators. I understand this concern. CCEA has experienced it firsthand, what it feels like to be marginalized since 2018. We recognize and deeply appreciate the unique perspectives that rural educators bring to the table. At the same time, educators in Clark County, as the largest district in Nevada, have their own unique needs and insights. The arguments from those opposing this bill, particularly from NSCA, have no merit when it comes to the claim that their representation will be threatened. At the core of their opposition, we believe, is a desire to maintain the status quo for political reasons. The irony here is that NSCA's very argument against AB 236 is an argument for it. They claim the current law is fair, but we note that it is not. AB 236 is not about pitting rural against urban. It's about ensuring that all educators, regardless of their location, have a voice in shaping the future of education in our state. Thank you for your time and consideration. We are committed to working collaboratively to ensure the voices of all educators are heard, respected, and represented.
Thank you, President Nices. And with that, Chair, we stand for questions.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Excuse me, Mr. Stewart and President Nices. We'll turn to the committee and see if there are any questions. Any questions at all? We have Senator Cruz Crawford.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, just a few questions. Sorry, I'm trying to read on here. Is the appointed member to the board, the State Board of Education, a voting member?
Daniel Stewart, for the record, yes. That we're talking about in this bill, yes, it's a voting member because there's 4 appointed non-voting members, 3 appointed voting members, and of those 3 voting members, 1 has to be a teacher, and that's would change here. That's the board position we're talking about here, where the list would go from 3 to 6.
And I know it does discuss the geographical diversity with our current, and I don't know if you have this information, our current board, sorry, I'm more focused on the State Board of Education than the other ones. I feel like there's a lot more power that comes with that. With the geographical diversity, how is that being ensured that out of all the members that we do have that representation? Because I do worry about the rurals.
Yeah, in my perspective, as of right now, there is no geographic diversity. I mean, an entire county, the largest one in the state, is not being represented in terms of bringing those the slate of candidates who can then serve as the voice for 75% of teachers. By the year 2030, the estimate is that 80% of all students in the state of Nevada will be in Clark County. So as of the way that the law is currently written, we are not seeing diversity exemplified in the State Board of Education.
Daniel Stewart, for the record.
Then that was Assembly Member De Silva.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So just to talk about the legal requirements, the way that it currently works for those 3 appointed voting members is there actually has to be some type of coordination between the governor, the speaker, and the majority leader, because there's a lot of different requirements. Of those 3 members, they've got to meet 3 different buckets. 1 has to be a teacher, 1 has to be a representative of business, and I believe 1 has to be a parent or somebody with a parental connection to the school. So they have to meet those 3 qualifications. So when there's an opening, it could be the one that was nominated by the speaker, it could be the one nominated by the majority, or the one appointed outright by the governor. The 3 of them are going to have to work together, and they'd have to do that same thing with geographical diversity. The way I would imagine it would happen is if, let's say, for instance, 2 of the members were already from Clark County, and an opening came. I think the advice of counsel to the governor's office or to whomever's moving would be this 3rd person has to come from outside of Clark County in order to meet the geographical diversity requirement.
And follow up. I think from our staff, what would be helpful is if we did get a map that showed where our representation does lie currently on the board. That would be helpful to just make sure that we have representation across the state. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cruz Crawford. We'll ask staff if you wouldn't mind providing that for the committee and then distributing that to everyone. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Senator Buck?
Thank you so much, Chair Taylor. Thank you so much for the bill. Seems common sense to me, coming from the district and was in the past a CCEA member. So what I guess I'm wondering is what happens if there's further factions? So, you also have administrator unions, you have the higher education institutions in which impact teachers and leaders. You have ESEA, NSEA, and CCEA, and probably an ASA, many different factions. Do any of these other organizations like ESA, do they get to submit one member for support staff, or is that in the plans or in the works also?
Daniel Stewart for the record. As of right now, there's no plans to make any other changes other than the ones that are in there. And I believe that a lot of these other unions, like the sports staff, can be subsumed into, so for instance, the Nevada State Education Association. And so they can potentially bring forth names of folks representing both. Administrators are included on some of these as well. So I imagine the administrators union will put forth a name. But right now, there's no change. In fact, that's the reason why like I said, why we took the names out, because it's based on membership. So if at some point a different bargaining unit ends up representing the bulk of teachers outside or inside Clark County, they would then be the group that puts forward those names. And the only changes we're making, again, are to the teacher positions of these boards, because those are the ones that specifically have the teacher union recommendations.
Ruben De Silva for the record, and thank you for the question, Senator Buck. That's the real focus of this bill is on that teacher representation. So, there's only one organization right now that can make that nomination. We know that there are two, and one of which is the larger, much larger of these unions. So the real focus is on the teacher representatives on those boards. So again, if a future legislature wants to come in and talk about expanding and talking about different representations of, for principals and all that, I think it would be up to them. This bill is written in a way where it's concise, it's focused, and also, and this is very important, it does not cause any sort of fiscal problem. If you're expanding boards and you're going to have to talk about, staff and budgeting, this avoids all of that. And in order to, as we all know, as legislators, we are dealing with a budget issue right now. This bill is written in a way where we won't have to deal with that sort of fiscal note. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Buck. Senator Titus?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for the presentation. I too am I guess questioning the representation and the mix of who this might be. And just for clarity, I guess I'm addressing on page 3 of the bill, it would be section 1, number 6 down to A, which is where the language is. And so currently we have, of the State Board of Education, on the appointed members, we have the 4 elected, but then we have the 3 appointed. One of them must be an educator. Is that correct?
Daniel Stewart for the record,
And
yes.
so this position that you're looking to fill, the one that is the educator position, you're recommending has to come from one of 6 that the 2 associations would be nominating.
Yes,
Correct.
Daniel Stewart for the record.
And that person has to be, the qualifications for that person has to be an educator.
Yes, Daniel Stewart
But
for the record.
that's a broad term.
If I may, I think it says teacher.
Right. So it has to be a teacher, but it doesn't say.
Senator Titus, I'm looking at page 3, line 4, under 6A.
Right. So that's what I'm trying to clarify.
It says a teacher.
So-
Is a teacher at a public school.
So what I'm looking at though, so it's a teacher at a public school. It can't be a teacher from a charter school. It can't be a private school.
Charter schools are public schools. Most
So
charters
it
are
could be a
public.
teacher, but do they have to be members of the union?
Daniel Stewart for the record, they do not.
And what component of the union gets to do the nominations? What I'm asking is it the board of directors? Do all however many members that you have, will they be voting on who the nominations are? Who is going to be the subset, the group that ultimately picks those 3 individuals? Who does that is what I'm asking.
Senator Titus Marie Nices for the record. As the president of the Clark County Education Association, that's within my authority to do so. I do have an executive board made up of 14 educators who teach or provide wraparound services to our students full time. So what we do is we look at our records and look at what we would do is look at our records and what educators qualify for these particular boards and look extensively at their backgrounds and qualifications before making those recommendations to the governor.
Where is,
If I may, I may be able to give you and thank you, President Nice. President Wallace is here. Would you mind coming forward, sir? That you may be able to provide a question. He's the president of NACA, who's making that appointment now, and so you can share with the senator how that appointment is made. Because I think that's what your question is, right?
yeah,
Senator?
here's where I'm going with my question. I'm concerned about who ultimately makes the choice for that nomination. Is it all your members get to recommend a name, or literally does just one person get to choose?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator. Brian Wallace, actually Vice President at Nevada State Education
I gave you a promotion. I'm
Association,
sorry,
but
Vice President. I'm sorry, Mr. Vice
It's
President.
okay. Maybe in 3 years I'll be back up here before you. We'll see how the next 3 in this session goes for me. Thank you for the little bit of humor. For NSCA, the nominating process when it comes to any of these statewide councils or boards is that through the NSCA president, there is outreach to every local president. So we reach out to all 34 rural presidents. And I say 34 because that also includes all of our support staff when necessary. If it is just a position dealing with just educators/teacher, we reach out to those specific local leaders. And a local leader like myself here in Carson City, I know my staff here, I know my teachers, and I work through them and I see, is anyone interested? So when the State Board of Education seat were to come open, I would reach out to every teacher in Carson City and say, hey, are any of you interested? I would look at my teachers of the year and say, are any of you interested? I would look at those who have been recognized at their sites, are you interested? If there's a specific skill set, perhaps that a board or council needs, we would reach out to those teachers such as Adrienne Wiggin at Empire, where she's one of our top STEM teachers in the state at a school that's been constantly recognized as a governor's STEM school. That then goes to the state president, and the state president, through our board also, as Ms. Nice has explained, would take those into considerations and narrow down those candidates. If interviews were to be needed, we would host interviews also and look at those qualifications for any of those positions. And then ultimately, per the law, it would be the NSCA president who would then submit those names to the governor for recommendation.
Thank you. So just that, is that written in that process, is it written in your bylaws somewhere, or is it written, I'm just curious, you do that because you're the current vice president. So how does the next person do it? How is this now, because we're changing statute to have you do this. And I'm just, we only meet every other year. I just want to know the process of how you as a body determine the nomination. You were very clear who you are seeking, but is that bylaws or just because of your preference? Because it has a lot of power. The president in Las Vegas just testified she gets to decide. It comes through her, and it sounds like it comes through you. So I'm just concerned about that.
It would be policy, not bylaw. So, and it would be part of any of our other standing committees. So within every association, just like the legislature, you have your certain standing committees and they have their policies and or bylaws they would abide by. And that's exactly what we would do as NSCA. It is a very open democratic process because, as you have heard, we want to ensure the best geographical representation that the state is asking for through statute.
So, Chair Taylor?
Please go ahead.
Daniel Stewart, I do want to add just one clarification. With this bill, we're not changing how the unions actually submit the names. So right now, currently, the Nevada State Education Association, through whatever process they use, is submitting the names. We were just simply adding that CCA gets to submit the same names, or gets to submit the same number of names. So essentially, whatever process they use would remain the same. We're not going to change how that internal process is. And the last thing I would add is, at least in the CCA perspective, these executive board members are elected by the members as a whole. So this does come from a democratic process by the membership.
Yeah. And Ruben De Silva for the record. And I do, again, to directly answer your question there, Senator Titus, the NRS itself doesn't dictate how the actual internal operations of these organizations will work. We're simply saying that however they're chosen, each organization will display those 3 slates of candidates each. So these are large organizations. I can speak for CCA, which I'm a member of. I mean, the meetings are very open, transparent. we have the discussions, and that's where those nominations and those actual slate of candidates would come from. So again, the NRS itself does not dictate how those slates are created. This bill is only saying that each organization will get a slate of 3, and then ultimately the appointing authority will appoint those one or 4 of those individuals onto those state boards.
Thank you, Senator Titus. Any other questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Wallace, for coming forward. Mr. Vice President for coming forward. And thank you so much, Assembly Member Mr. Stewart and President Nices. We will now open it up for testimony in support of Assembly Bill 236 here in Carson City or in Las Vegas. If you're in support, please come forward at this time. Remember, you'll have 2 minutes per comment, and make sure you state your name for the record. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Taylor and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Taylor Avery, and I'm the Manager of Political Affairs for the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber is in support of AB 236. A strong education system is essential to developing a prepared and developed workforce that will support Nevada's economic growth. This bill takes a measured approach to education board appointments by ensuring that teachers and educational staff across Nevada have a voice in shaping education policy. We'd like to thank the committee for its consideration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Avery. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Wesley Harper. I am the Director of Government Affairs for the City of North Las Vegas. We concur with the opinion of and the testimony of the Vegas Chamber. We appreciate Assemblyman De Silva for bringing this bill forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Seeing no one else coming forward in Carson City, we will go to Las Vegas. Please go ahead and we can start whenever you're ready. I'm not sure who's first. Please jump on in when you're ready. They state your name for the record. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Taylor and members of this committee. My name is Brenda Pearson, and I'm speaking on behalf of CCEA. I'm going to be reading into the record a testimony from one of our teachers. For the record, my name is Jim Frazee. I am a teacher in Clark County and a proud member of CCEA. I am writing to you today to ask you for your support on Assembly Bill 236. I will keep my testimony simple because the task of this bill is simple. AB 236 simply brings the mechanics of nominating educators to state committees within the realities of modern times. The current law reflects a time when one organization spoke for all educators in the state. Just like the Stagecoach and the Silver Strikes, that time has passed. The current system leaves out the voices of the educators who teach 72% of Nevada's children. Yes, when you leave the voice of the teachers who advocate for our children out, you leave out the children themselves. AB 236 does not replace or eliminate anyone else. It simply reflects the educational landscape of Nevada today. It recognizes that the bargaining unit for over 18,000 Clark County educators needs a voice in this process. Let me be clear about this. No one speaks for the 18,000 educators in Clark County except CCEA. By supporting this bill, you give the educators in Nevada's largest and the nation's 5th largest school district a voice. By supporting this bill, you give our 290,000 students that we teach and their families a voice. I urge you to support AB 236. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Pearson. Please go ahead, state your name whenever you're ready.
Hello, Committee Chairperson. My name is Matt Neiswanger. I'm the Vice President of CCA. I'm here to speak in favor of AB 236. AB 236 is about creating representation in the state's education boards and councils that is fair and that is earned. We need to balance the makeup of these boards and councils. NSEA doesn't represent me or anyone in Clark County, and they haven't since 2018. They don't negotiate our contracts. They don't lobby to bring more money to Clark County. They can't represent me in workplace violation hearings, and they don't advocate for improving my workplace conditions here in Clark County. In fact, they try to tear down CCA. NSEA actively encourages members to leave CCA, and they are the only ones that are allowed to nominate educators for positions on these committees. That means that they have been nominating people who are against the best interests of teachers in Clark County. This lack of balance must be fixed. We only want to ensure that our voice is heard. NSCA having the only voice, a voice coming from the perspective of tearing down CCA, is not a representative voice for Clark County. We don't dislike NSCA. We aren't trying to take away anyone's voice. NSCA will still have the right to submit nominations, just like CCA will get to submit nominations. We don't feel like a name should be included in the bill. We are confident that we will remain relevant. We don't need our name in the bill. If we lose influence, then we shouldn't have nominating authority. Insisting on having a particular name in the bill feels like desperation. A group that doesn't represent the majority of its population doesn't deserve to have an outsized voice only because of tradition. AB 236 helps to fix the unbalanced power dynamic on our state's educational boards and councils and ensures flexibility in the future regarding these institutions so that the bargaining groups that are relevant will have a voice in the process. Please consider passing AB 236. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Nicewater. Seeing no one else here in Carson City or in Las Vegas, AVH, do we have anyone in support on the phone lines?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support of Assembly Bill 236, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Elizabeth Adler, and I am a 27-year veteran educator of the Clark County School District and an executive board member of the Clark County Education Association. I am here today to speak in support of Assembly Bill 236. This bill is of great importance to my fellow educators and myself in Southern Nevada, as we have lost our voice in committees that discuss educational interests of our children, who represent 65% of the total student population in the state. Since CCEA disaffiliated from NSEA in 2016, there has been no representative on the 3 state committees from the largest district in the state. The silenced voice of almost 290,000 children and the nearly 18,000 educators who serve them is a disservice to the very constituents that we are raising our students to be in this great state. The message has been clear. The educators and students in the South have been disenfranchised for the past 9 years, and the passage of this bill would demonstrate a corrective measure to provide the opportunity for participation on the 3 committees in this bill. It should be the view of all stakeholders that committees serving the whole state must display geographic diversity and representation of our educators and the children they serve in all of Nevada. Southern Nevada does represent both urban and rural students, schools, and communities. This bill does not threaten to take voice away from the decisions that are made for our children across the state. It offers an equitable opportunity for the largest organization that represents over 100,000 students and the one representing fewer than 100,000 students to recommend individuals to each to serve on these committees. In turn, it would be upon the governor to select the most qualified. This change in no way would compromise the organization named in the current statute from continuing to have equitable representation. Everyone should have the opportunity to have their voice heard and represent the best interests of our students, regardless of where they live. I encourage you to vote in favor of this bill to bring the language up to date that would represent the whole of the state and ensure that decisions being made for our children and their educational outcomes are being served by the most qualified representatives on these important committees. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have another caller?
Chair, there are no additional callers at this time.
Thank you very much. And now we'll open it up for opposition testimony here in Carson City. Please come forward. And if there's anyone in Las Vegas, please come forward at this time as well. Mr. Vice President, please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. I'm Brian Wallace, the Vice President of the Nevada State Education Association, who has been providing the voice of Nevada educators for 125 years in all 17 counties. NSCA does oppose AB 236, which does remove NSCA as the name nominating authority for educator positions on the State Board of Education, the Teachers and Leaders Council, and the Statewide Council for the coordination of the regional training programs. Instead, AB 236 would replace the current language with very cumbersome language that divides the nominating authority and risks this legislation needing to be revisited due to its crafting. The bill risks compromising the actual statewide representation on these boards and councils that NSCA has been able to provide. Currently, for the boards, the State Board of Education, which was nominated by NSCA, is an elementary education teacher from the Clark County School District. Our nominees on the Teacher and Leaders Council and the other councils and boards come from the following regions: Clark, Carson, Douglas, Mineral, and Washoe counties. Every reference we've heard today has been about meeting the geographical representation of this state and not just one county. Even with the current proposed language, you risk giving power back to just one county. It is something this legislative body has worked on repeatedly. And I'm young to Nevada. I've been here 23 years. And it is something I have heard repeatedly through several sessions about the dominance of one county over the others. And it's why bodies such as NSCA has worked extremely hard to ensure that does not happen. Once our nominee or any nominee we put forth would happen to be appointed, they do represent all. It becomes about all. It becomes about the students and not any of the other items you have heard about. We're not worried about contracts, who's grieving what, who's pursuing what at a local level, but simply about what is best for our students statewide when we talk geographical representation. NSCA asks you to oppose AB 236 or consider amending the bill to include Clark County Education
Mr. Wallace, I'm sorry,
Association
you're
as a
out of time,
position
sir.
on the boards.
Okay,
Thank
so if you wouldn't mind sending those in, I'd love to hear your recommendation, but send those in via email. She'll share it with the committee. Okay, all right, great. Thank you. Seeing no one else here in Carson City and no one in Las Vegas, we will go to the phone lines. Do we have a caller in opposition? AVH?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 236, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good good afternoon, everyone in the committee. CYRUS HOJJATY. I stand in opposition. I will ditto the previous and future commentators. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next caller?
Chair, there are no additional callers at this time.
Thank you. Now we'll open up for neutral testimony. Anyone neutral on Assembly Bill 236 here in Carson City or in Las Vegas? Seeing none, we'll check one more time to the phone lines, AVH.
We've had no additional callers at this time, Chair.
Thank you very much. And we'll ask Assembly member if you'd like to come up for closing comments. And I know that Senator Titus also has a question that may be for you, Assembly member, or maybe for staff. Senator?
Ruben De Silva for the record. Yes, Senator, if you have a question.
Yes, I think it was related to actually a comment for somebody calling in support, stating that everyone needs to have representation on these boards. And I'm curious, are there non-union teachers on the board? Or is it really, so you're not representing everybody, it's just union teachers that get that seat?
Yeah, Ruben De Silva for the record. Thank you for the question, Senator. The way that, again, just looking at the bill itself and analyzing the textual focus of the bill, it does not mention that you have to be a member of a union. It just says that it's these two organizations. The AB 236 says CCA and NSCA that will make the actual nominations. So it does not mention that you have to be a member of a union. Again, just doing a basic textual analysis of the of AB 236.
But
and as the way the law stands to it, there's
right.
no...
and there's no carve out for non-union members.
That's correct.
To represent everybody. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Please go right ahead. Closing comments, Assembly member?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Ruben De Silva for the record again. I know I have some brief comments to make here, and then I want to bund it over to President Nices there in Las Vegas. So just a few things that I do want to really focus on. I know that the opposition here mentioned that that there was this question of statewide representation. But the real focus of this bill, the real issue this bill is dealing with, the real problem that we have, again, is an even wider disparity. We're talking about an entire community, Clark County, that has no actual process, no way, no sort of voice in any of our state boards in nominating teachers to these boards. We're talking about 75% now. A super majority, if you want to use legislative term, a super majority of teachers in the state are kept out of this process. There is an organization in Clark County, NEASN, as was mentioned by some of the other testimonials here. This is an organization that has no collective bargaining power. Has no ability to represent teachers when you have to get in front of those hot seat sort of situations. It's more so of a club. 160 teachers, I believe, is the number, as opposed to the 18,000 that CCA represents. I mean, this is something that we have to take into consideration as a lawmaking body. So what this bill is doing is addressing the larger disparity that's taking place here. The fact that, again, 75% of the teachers, Clark County, our largest state, our most dynamic state, and again, by the year 2030, we're expecting that 80% of all students, public school students in the state of Nevada are going to be in Clark County. That's where education is happening in regards to public education. All we're saying is that CCA wants to have an input in this process. Again, a slate of candidates from NSCA, 3 slate of candidates from CCA and from NSCA each, and then the appointing authorities will then decide who sits on those boards. We believe this is equitable, that this is fair, and again, this does not expand the boards. This does not cause any sort of fiscal sort of a note, and we can move forward as a state and really focus on proportional representation. And with that, I want to bunt it over to President Isis for closing statements.
President Isis, please go right ahead. Closing comments? I think they're frozen, or they're all doing a really good job of not moving. I'm really tired, so it could just be me. Okay, there we are. President Isis, please go ahead. Closing comments?
Oh, thank you. It froze down here on our end, so we weren't sure. So AB 236 language is not cumbersome, as the language was pulled directly from the statute that sends nominations to the Commission on Professional Standards. AB 236 updates an outdated law, a current law that disproportionately harms over 18,000 educators in Clark County by denying CCA the right to recommend appointments to key bodies. NSCA's opponents' arguments have no merit to suggest they would be disenfranchised from representation. We believe the core of their opposition is politics. In fact, NSCA's argument against the bill, what the Vice President Wallace just said, could be said of CCA's appointment as well. Ultimately, it is up to the governor. So if the educator is appointed from Clark County, that educator would also be the voice of all educators in Nevada, just to his exact point. The proposed legislation would stand the test of time and be fair and provide an opportunity for CCA to be represented, to have represented educators to finally have a seat at the table on boards and commissions. AB 236 does not guarantee appointments. The authority to make those appointments remains with the governor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member, and thank you so much, President Isis. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 236. Assembly Member, thank you so much. Mr. Stewart, Vice President Wallace, we thank all of you for being here. Okay, now we're down to our last item on the agenda today, and that is public comment. If you would like to make public comment to the Senate Committee on Education here in Carson City, please come forward, or in Las Vegas, please come forward at this time, or we have the phone line available. If you'd like to call in, one more time, that number is 888-475-4499. The meeting ID is 8791-5657-485. Seeing no one in Carson City or in Las Vegas, AVH, do we have anyone on the phone lines?
To provide public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no public comment callers at this time.
Thank you so much, AVH. Thank you all for being here. Our meeting is now adjourned. We will reconvene on Friday at 1 p.m.